What you're about to see wasn't a prison. It wasn't a punishment camp. It was a children's hospital. And in this video, we're going to walk through 10 photographs that most people have never seen. Images that were locked away, hidden from the public for decades. Each one shows a different piece of the same broken system. A system that started with good intentions and ended with children stripped of their names, their clothes, and their childhoods. So stay with us, because by the end of this video, you'll never look at these old buildings the same way again. Number 1, children restrained in straitjackets inside early psychiatric wards. Most people think of a straitjacket as something out of a horror movie, but for thousands of children in early psychiatric wards, it was just part of the morning routine. Folded, ready, waiting. Staff didn't call it a restraint. They called it a mechanical device and logged it in clinical notes the same way you'd log a medication dose. The language was calm. The reality was not. Photos from this period show children as young as 6 or 7, arms crossed over their chests, sitting in rows on bare wooden benches. Not struggling, just sitting, still. Because they had learned that struggling made it worse. Number 2, rows of children sleeping in overcrowded asylum dormitories. Now imagine walking into a room the size of a gymnasium and seeing nothing but beds. Row after row, maybe 40 or 50 of them, each one holding a child. No toys, no color, no space between them. These dormitory photos don't show violence. They show something almost worse. Every bed identical, every pillow identical, every child dressed the same. Because when a ward built for 30 children holds 90, the first thing that disappears is individuality. Children were assigned numbers. Clothes were pooled and redistributed after laundry. Toys brought from home were confiscated as a hygiene precaution. You can see the Reform era's good intentions in those high ceilings and tall windows. And you can see exactly where those intentions ran out in the rows of beds crammed underneath them. Number 3, young patients strapped to restraint chairs for behavior control. There's a photograph that shows up in asylum archives more than almost any other. A child sitting upright in a wooden chair, leather straps across the chest, wrists, and ankles. The chair is bolted to the floor. And on the intake form, in the reason for restraint column, someone has written, behavior correction. Doctors actually believed forced stillness had a calming effect on the nervous system. There were papers written about it. That logic sounds almost reasonable until you see the photos. Because the photos don't show calm. They show heads down, eyes on the wall, straps pulled tight. And in the background, more children and more chairs lined up along the wall, waiting. Number 4, children locked inside isolation cells as punishment. In most of these facilities, there was a room at the end of the hall that staff rarely talked about. It didn't appear on the official tour, but the children knew it was there. The clinical term was seclusion. What it looked like was solitary confinement. Bare concrete walls, a drain in the floor, a single bulb behind a wire cage. Heavy door with a small slot to look through. And here's the detail that changes everything. Records show children were put in these rooms not for violence, but for crying at night, refusing to eat, or moving too slowly. Locked in a bare room for behaving like a child. There's no other way to say it. Number 5, institutional bathing lines where children were washed in groups. Once a week, sometimes less, the children were bathed. Not privately, not individually, but in a line, one after another, moved through a tiled room while staff in aprons worked as fast as they could. It looks less like a hospital and more like a processing facility, because that's exactly what it was. Speed was the priority, not the children. For many kids, especially those who had been there for years, the bathing line was one of the only times another person touched them. And it wasn't gentle. Cold water, no warning, rough hands moving them along. Even that small moment, something that should belong to you, had been turned into a system. Number 6, electroshock therapy machines used on child patients. In the 1940s and 1950s, a piece of equipment began appearing in children's psychiatric wards. It had dials, wires, and 2 metal paddles, and it was used on children as young as 3 years old. Electroshock therapy was introduced for adults in the late 1930s. Within a decade, doctors were using it on children too. No real studies supported this. They did it anyway. The machines look ordinary in photographs. Metal boxes, coiled wires, padded tables. That's what makes them so hard to look at. Many of these children had developmental disabilities or trauma-based behavioral issues. But a child who just received a treatment was quiet and easy to manage for hours. That was the point. Number 7, children wearing restraining gloves to prevent self-harm. Some children in these institutions wore thick padded gloves all day, every day. Not because they were cold, because staff had decided their hands were a problem. The gloves were meant to stop kids from hitting themselves or scratching, and on the surface, that sounds protective. But photos show children with their hands completely covered, unable to grip, unable to feel anything at all. Not just during a hard moment, all day, every day as a default. Here's what the records actually show. That self-harm was usually caused by the institution itself, the isolation, the silence, the lack of touch. So instead of fixing that, they just took away the child's hands. You can see it in the photos. Kids pressing their padded wrists against walls just to feel something. Number 8, overcrowded day rooms filled with silent child patients. One of the most unsettling photos in this collection shows no restraints at all. Just a room full of children doing absolutely nothing. Sitting, staring, silent. The day room was supposed to be where kids played, talked, moved around. But with one attendant watching 40 children and no budget for books or toys, those plans stayed on paper. So the children just sat on benches along the walls and waited for meals. Researchers who studied kids leaving these institutions later found language delays, emotional problems, trouble connecting with people, conditions that looked like mental illness but were actually caused by the emptiness of that room. The institution made them worse, then used that as a reason to keep them. Number 9, children in iron bed frames used to immobilize them overnight. When the lights went out, the restraints didn't come off. For many children, night was when the iron frames went on. These were metal frames that locked across a child's body, bolted to the bedsides. The official reason was safety. The real reason was that there was almost no night staff. The frames look almost like cribs in photographs. But the locking mechanism tells you this wasn't about keeping a child safe. It was about keeping them in one place. Some beds had wrist restraints too, so a child would wake up unable to move at all. And in facility records, these frames were logged as protective equipment, right alongside bandages and thermometers. Number 10, early hydrotherapy tubs used to restrain young patients. In the early 20th century, one of the most common treatments in psychiatric facilities wasn't a drug or a surgery. It was water. Large porcelain tubs with canvas covers that fastened over the patient, leaving only the head sticking out. The child inside couldn't move at all. Staff called it sedating. The kids who lived through it called it terrifying. And being unable to move in water triggers something close to a drowning response, even when your head is above the surface. Hydrotherapy wasn't phased out because anyone decided it was cruel. It ended because sedative pills became cheaper and easier. The tub was replaced by a pill, but the goal never changed. Keep the child still and quiet. Every one of these photographs was taken inside a building with the word hospital on the sign out front. That word matters, because it means the people running these places believed what they were doing was medicine. The straitjackets were treatment, the isolation rooms were therapy, the iron beds were care. That label gave cover to something that was really just storage. The system didn't fail because of monsters. It failed because of budgets and indifference. Society signed children over to the state and stopped asking questions. If this video changed how you see these photos, share it, and be sure to subscribe.